The following podcast is an enticing media production.
Where the Nell have you been? Join us for conversation about life, business, and everything in between. Welcome to What the Nell, where we've got stories to tell. Here's your host, Nell Tice.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another brand new episode of the What the Nell podcast with yours truly, Nell Tice. We are taking a little bit of a break from the series I'm doing today with Steve Trott called Don't Follow Me. And I am talking to the ever so wonderful Leslie Fiorenzo. I hope I said that correctly.
You did.
I have this really bad habit of forgetting to ask my guest at the beginning of every episode how to pronounce their name. So I just take stabs at it. And if I'm wrong, you just have to tell me.
You did great.
Good. Thank you. Allow me to introduce Leslie to you. After failing to win the top prize in a speech contest early in her career, Leslie began her journey toward excellence in public speaking. She earned her Competent Toastmaster certificate, graduated from the Michigan Speakers Association Professional Track Program, and has spoken to thousands of sales professionals and business owners about how to grow their business using referral marketing. In her coaching practice, she guides her clients to find their voice and share their unique story to grow with their business. Leslie's unique approach comes from over 30 years spent in corporate environments as a human resources professionals. My goodness. A lifelong learner, she has achieved a number of certifications and holds a master's degree in human resource development. Leslie, welcome to the What the Nell podcast.
Thank you, Nell. I am thrilled to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. The feeling is mutual, and I'm really excited to talk to you today. I typically don't script any of these podcast episodes, I should say anymore, but I had quite a few questions come to mind today, and I just kept writing them down as the day went on because public speaking is something that business owners and entrepreneurs can be so fearful of. And it can be one of the things that really propels you forward the most in your business. So what led you to wanting to take on this task?
Well, because I genuinely have a heart to see people succeed, and I've seen so many people struggle with this topic, and it really prevents them from getting their story heard because they're not sharing, they're reluctant to share. And I just think it's so important because I believe that when you get something placed on your heart to start a business or whatever that is, it's there for a reason and you have to act on that. And I want to help people act on that.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. Actionable items. I can tell you from personal experience. I think I took a public speaking class when I was in college, and I had always wanted to be on television, and I wanted to be, I guess, very public facing. And so the actual fear of getting on stage for me was never a thing. It's not the public speaking, but it's the imposter syndrome. And everybody talks about that. What makes me so unique, and why should people want to hear my story? And that type of thought process. I would imagine I'm not the only one.
You're not
So how do you suggest approaching something like imposter syndrome?
Well, we all have what I call an inner critic. And what we want to do is take that inner critic and turn it into an inner champion. And you'll probably never 100% quiet that critic's voice. It's there for a reason, and it thinks it's being helpful. I mean, it's your brain trying to keep you safe. And that's the number one job of our brain is safety and security. And when we acknowledge that, I think it's helpful to say, yeah, I hear you, little voice. However, this would help me more. If you could do this, it would be better. And just have those conversations. And I know people think that's kind of strange initially, but it's super helpful because you're going to be talking to yourself anyway. It's just a thing, right? We all have that. And so we might as well acknowledge it and then give it more direction and give it better direction and repeating affirmations, all those techniques are really helpful to create new neural pathways.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And it's practice makes perfect, right? You can't just expect to automatically jump into that mindset, which is kind of what gets me to the meat and potatoes behind all of this. I know that speaking on stage and telling your story doesn't just start with stepping on the stage. There's a before process, there's an after process. And so tell us how you would walk through preparation for public speaking, or the stage could be anything. It could be an actual stage, or it could be a podcast.
Sure.
So take us through maybe some tips or steps for in preparation for speaking.
Well, what I tell people is to have a pre-presentation plan, and that encompasses a lot of things. One, it is story development. So starting with a strong opening, and then your ending. So if you start with the opening and then the closing, and then build the bridge in between. So I heard somebody else, this is not my original idea. I apologize to whoever said it on YouTube. I can't remember, but it talked about the jigsaw puzzle. And when you make a jigsaw puzzle, you start with a frame. So starting with the opening and the closing is the frame. And then you fill in the techniques, being as concise as possible, because in this day and age, our attention span, somebody said, I don't know if this is true, we have a shorter attention span than a goldfish. He's like 7 seconds or something. But we are so inundated. And so people want to hear you, but you have to be compelling, and you have to be compelling right off the get-go.
Yes.
And I've got to say, that's what I love about, you've got a wonderful play on your name with What the Nell. And so it's attracting people in, at least my opinion. So it's that hook initially. And that's what we want to be able to find is, what are people going to want to listen to? What's going to perk up their ears? And so helping think about that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's storytelling. It's really storytelling at its finest. And I do this in my daily life because, we have a video production company, and I I learned how to tell stories through video and visuals and things like that. And the elements of storytelling are not different. It's just presented differently. So this is a very important aspect. And you're absolutely right. Now, I haven't checked the attention span of a goldfish in quite some time, but I will tell you that if you do not have your audience's attention within the first 7 seconds of a YouTube video, guess what? That view is dropping off and your retention rate is not going to be very high, because you're right. We're overstimulated, and we're overwhelmed with content these days, and you have to be able to frame that story right off the bat. So you're absolutely correct. So I guess we'll back up a little bit further. And in the storytelling sense, this really makes no sense. But what are some ways that people can get onto a stage? Let's say I'm a new entrepreneur. I've just started this business. People need to know about me. What are some ways that I can get in front of people to tell my story?
Well, I'm a big fan of chambers of commerce, because most chambers, depending on the area you're in, some chambers are very much focused on the tourism industry, but many are business focused and have events where you can network and speak. The other thing to think about is many groups that meet virtually or in person are looking for speakers. So I think Rotary, Lions Club, organizations like that have a Kiwanis, those that have a meeting, usually at lunch, not always, but they're looking for people to present on a topic. So do a little research. I know there are more and more Facebook groups that are looking for be a podcast guest, be a speaking guest. We're looking for speakers and those kinds of things. So I just have to do a little bit of investigation. I would also say people's industry, why can't I think of the word? Their membership, when you belong to an industry, like the Manufacturing Industry Association, those kinds of groups like that.
Yeah. No, that's really great advice. And I love that you said Chamber of Commerce because I actually just was reading an email from my Chamber of Commerce before we hopped onto this recording. And it was basically showing me my statistics for how many times my business was put in front of someone at in within the Chamber of Commerce network. And it's really cool. And you're right. There are some places that are more tourism focused, but there are different commerce chambers that you can belong to. You don't have to just belong to one if your city or town or state or offers multiple different ones. So I also love the idea of creating your own stage too. I know that lunch and learns are a very popular thing for people to do, and then you can kind of create the foundation yourself too, and get some other people on board, which is really nice. But okay, so I think now we're getting prepared with getting on the stage. You know, we've got the appointment set. We've got the marketing down and everybody knows we're going to be on that podcast. We're going to be on that stage. How on earth do I handle the nerves and the stage fright before I step onto that stage?
So I have a few things that I do to prepare because again, and I don't know that those butterflies are ever gonna go away, but you want them to fly in formation. And I'm stealing that from
I
Toastmasters. I know
love
that for
that.
sure. But breathing exercises that you have practiced and prepared. And so the 4-part breath or boxed breathing, I've heard it called a number of different things, but inhaling to 4 counts, holding that inhale, exhaling to 4 counts, and holding that exhale for 4. So you can, if you're so inclined, imagine in your head you're creating a box. So the inhale line that's 4, the hold, you go up and down.
Right.
Some people prefer color rather than counting. So breathing in a calming color like blue and exhaling a stressful color like red, those kinds of that visualization. The other thing I would say is what you say to yourself about your audience, they want to hear from you. They are there because you're going to make an impact and they know that. So they're your friends, right? And if you're live in person, I will say pick out 2 or 3 faces around the room that are friendly faces, and you just talk right to them. Don't think about anybody else. And when you're on camera, you just imagine. Now, this is a great because we're back and forth and we can see each other. But if you don't, imagine your best friend and you're just having a chat with your best friend. And it's all good. We can have a chat with anybody. I think music beforehand to get you pumped up. If you are going to record a video, especially, you've got to be a little bit more animated than if you were going to be in person. So getting your energy up, if music is helpful, I think it's a helpful tool. I also tell people, especially if you are going to be on stage or seated, keep your feet flat on the floor. I've seen so many people shift, wiggle, just stand. They're not standing still. They don't have a really good base. And if we're nervous, I think a really good base helps us stay calm. See it going well, visualize success. We create in our heads all kinds of stories. We awfulize things and just see it going well. Know that, hey, yes, maybe some boo-boos are going to happen. A mistake or 2 might creep in. Oh, well, we're human. We're real. It's going to happen. And the beauty of recording is we can edit.
That's so true. I wish I would have talked to you a little over a week ago. My husband and I have a radio show, and we were doing the festival in Pensacola, Florida, and we were doing a live show in front of a live audience. And I've been on a few stages in my life, but you're right. Look, I don't have a fear of public speaking, but I do remember sitting on the stage and we had these big plush comfy chairs, and I always, whether I'm on stage or not, I cross my legs. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, the leg that is not hitting the floor. Can people see my leg twitching because I might be nervous? And so I'm thinking about that. I'm getting off topic because I'm thinking about that. And now all of a sudden I've forgotten what I was going to say, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, so I wish I would have been able to talk to you. But it's still, you're right. Things will happen and mistakes. We're human. And that's also that's the fun part about live. And we say this all the time. We always say live radio. When you are live in front of people, people expect you to sometimes make mistakes. People enjoy when you make mistakes because it's relatable. It's real. It's very authentic. So,
Well, I think we have to be able to laugh at ourselves. And it's, oh,
yes.
well, and if we look at it all as an experiment, and it's not going to be the end of the world, okay. And I'm not going to resonate with everybody. I know that.
Right, right.
But the people who do
Hmm.
will come to me, right? Or will connect, right?
Exactly. That's why we do all of this, right?
Exactly.
Ah, amazing. I love that. So, tips for being on stage. Let's say if you've got to handle something like what I did. I'm thinking about something else. I've lost track of what I'm talking about. Movements, things like that. What do you suggest to be successful while you're in the moment on that stage?
Yes. So sometimes just acknowledging, gosh, I lost my train of thought. Give me a second. Or a few minutes ago, I couldn't think of the word associations. So okay, I'll get it. The other thing to think about, and when especially on stage, is remembering you're there to serve that audience. So this is
Mm,
true on camera too. But
mhm,
if I can remember that I'm there to serve people, and what I prepared to say, I want to share. If I make a mistake, if I get off track, people are generally speaking forgiving, and
mhm,
they want you to succeed. I truly believe an audience wants the speaker to succeed. They're there, if even if they haven't paid money to hear you, they're giving of their time. So they want that time to be worthwhile, and they
mhm,
want you to succeed. The other thing to think about when you're in person and live is just not worrying about what else is, to the best of your ability, eliminate all those distractions. And you tell yourself, I've prepared, I've got this. I am the subject matter expert. People want to hear from me and they want me to succeed. Just that self-talk and is, I think, helpful.
That's so, so helpful. That's amazing. And to credit your earlier comment, when you're not live, if you're doing something like a podcast, yes, there is editing, but yeah, we always find ourselves in these positions where there are distractions. Even if I'm recording right now, a cat or an animal might be walking by, and I'm thinking, I'm looking out of the corner of my eye, what's it doing? And those types of things. And yes, it's all very people do when they're giving of their time, especially they want to feel connected and like there's a purpose for them being there. So yeah, I can appreciate all of those things that you have mentioned. So we talk about all the time the goals and the purpose behind being on stages, especially as business owners and entrepreneurs. What do we do with all of this? So we've gotten on the stage, we've done this, we've talked, we've done everything we can possibly do. Now what? Because now to me, this is make or break.
Yeah.
Is, we've given the information, we've done everything, but what do we do with all of this now? How do we connect with the audience? How do we continue with that and make this worthwhile for them after the stage?
So letting them know you want to follow up with them because you've just shared, but there's more that can be. So having a printed card that you can send out, so it can be
Mm,
like the size of a index card, but I would have it professionally designed and printed, but then you step the audience through that. So you say, I really want to keep in touch with you today, but I have some more information that I want to share. In order for me to share that with you, I've got to have your email. So on
mhm,
this card that's before you, the first line is your name, second line is your email, Third thing I want to know is what are you going to do as a result of spending time with me today? What's your one action item you're taking away?
Mm-hmm.
And anything else you want to share. And then there's a little box that says, can I quote you on that? Because if you've shared a good comment, I want to put you on my website, possibly. So give me permission to do that. And then I'll collect those at the door as you leave, and we'll be in touch.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard of anyone doing that.
I do it all the time. So, but now the important piece is step them through what you want them to do. If you just say there's a card on your table that I want you to fill out, you're not going to get a great return. But if you say there's a card on your table because I want to stay in touch with you, I believe I have more offers. As a matter of fact, I have a free gift for you. So you could even put a box there that says, yes, I want Leslie's free gift. And they check that. So you step them through name, email, free gift, comment. I always ask, what are you going to do with this? We've spent time together.
Mm-hmm.
What action are you going to take as a result of being here today? And I want to know that. I want them to write that down.
Oh, I love that. No one does that. That's amazing advice.
And so then if you're on a podcast, right, you've got show notes
Mhm.
and there's going to be information and people can act on those show notes,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, and that's always that's a struggle. And I didn't realize until recently I had a situation came to light with a client of mine and a client of theirs actually in a podcast, and the promotion of it and handling all of that information, the funnel, I guess people would call it, and different ways that you can do it, different ways that you can collect the information. And I think where a lot of people struggle is, they're doing all of this stuff, they've got the stage, and then it falls flat because you haven't maintained that connection. And in today's digital age, it's so easy to just say, here's my website, follow me on social media, and call it a day. So I love that you're encouraging people to physically connect with something tangible. And so that's amazing. That's really amazing advice. How do you feel about during speeches? I've had this a couple of times where the person hosting the event has requested an in-person activity. The speaker needs to do an activity with the audience. How do you feel about doing something like that? Or do you think that that's yeah, how do you feel about that?
Well, my degree from Western is in training and development. So yes, I'm a big activity person. I think it's helpful because it's like the whole involve me and I will learn.
Mhm.
So, and I think the other thing about, especially in-person networking events, but you can do the same on a Zoom room, having people engage with each other. Because
Mhm.
I also believe we can learn just from each other too and their experiences. So getting people to discuss the issue and talk about it. But it has to, if you're going to do an activity, if the host wants something, talk about it beforehand, what's appropriate, and then time it. Because the other thing about activities, especially in a large group, is that can get unwieldy. And if you
Mm.
have a 45-minute presentation and then you've devoted 15 minutes to an activity, you've got to account for that in what you're presenting. And I think people appreciate it when speakers are timely. People will give you a little bit of grace in a minute or two, but by and large, they've got things to do, right? And they're looking, if you see people looking at their watch, not good.
I love that. I'm going to ask you these questions. These are
Okay.
just going to be a couple of rapid fire questions. First one, what is your biggest pet peeve? What is one of your biggest pet peeves that speakers do when they get on a stage?
Ramble and go over time. It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
You've made a commitment and they gave you a time frame.
Hmm.
Now things happen sometimes and lunch is late or or the other
Sure.
speaker runs over if
Mhm.
you're in but timeliness is that's a big bugaboo of mine.
That's great. Yeah. And in turn, what is one of the greatest things that you think a speaker can do?
Connect and offer value with the audience.
Hmm.
Sharing their story, we all can learn from stories. I wanted to insert this because I think it's a thing to remember. Facts tell, but stories sell. And you're connecting with me on a personal basis. So that's what I want. People we love stories, right? As human beings, we're conditioned in that way.
Sure. Yeah. Facts tell, but stories sell. I think you might have just written the title for this episode.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give you one more. Never tell a story without a point, and never make a point without a story.
Oh my gosh. Do you have a book of quotes coming out? Because you probably should.
Maybe I should do.
Oh, this is amazing, Leslie. I mean, just in such the short amount of time that we've been together today, you've given so much value. And I want to know, what is it like to work with you? And just give us a little bit of a synopsis of what a prospective client could expect.
So I have kind of what I would call a vetting process and having a conversation about what's their end goal and where they want to be in the 6 weeks that we work together. Quite typically, I work in 6 week segments with folks
Okay.
because they often come because they have an engagement, they want to do something better, they know they've got to make improvements, they want to knock it out of the park, so to speak. So we work together on that and it's much of the session is that inner critic to inner champion, but also practicing what I found now, and I know this to be true with me personally, but I have a presentation tomorrow and I spent about an hour this afternoon just talking like I'm going to talk, pretending I'm putting it on my lips, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Even if people have notes prepared in advance, where I find the disconnect is they don't do that. They don't prepare, talk about it out loud to see how it sounds, but then know the timing. Because again, I think that's where we can get in trouble if we're not practiced and we think, oh, this will be about this long, and then we get into the story and it's expanded. Yeah, we've just blown our time.
Oof. Yeah, I think that's really, really pertinent. I can honestly tell you a story on the opposite end of things. I had my first time on a public stage. I did really well. It was great. And I think still to this day that was beginner's luck, because the second time that I did it, I thought, oh, I've done this before. It's fine. I'll just wing it. I can do this. And I got really cocky and I ended up being under time.
Oh.
And I started to feel really rushed. And I thought, well, maybe I'm rushing. And then I'm starting to do the thing while I'm in front of the people. And I felt like it just wasn't my best performance. And I thought, oh my gosh, people are here. Some of them are here to see me, and I'm not giving them enough. And fortunately, there was a little bit of a miscommunication with the timing and everything. And I actually was in time, but I thought I wasn't. But anyway, but that's just, when you don't actually prepare the way that you should, that's what happens. And you start to really get into your head and things like that. So prepare, prepare, prepare. Leslie, I am so thrilled that you have shared all of this information with us today. And I know so many people will take so much away from this. Now, switching gears a little bit, we have a tradition here on What the Nell. And we like to tell What the Nell stories. And this is a great way to connect and resonate with your audience. And I was just telling you earlier, we shouldn't take ourselves so seriously. We've had some really great stories, What the Nell stories here on this podcast. And I have to ask you, what is one What the Nell story for you?
Well, it's about how I met my husband.
I love a good How I Met My Husband story.
Well, I actually looked him up in the phone book.
What?
Yes. So a friend of mine, I think people maybe still meet at bars. I don't know. This was before dating apps and all that. Because we're celebrating 40 years of marriage this May.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So anyway, friend of mine introduced us, and his name is Vito Fiorenzo, but he always goes by Butch. And so we were leaving, we had talked that night, and anyway, she said to me on our way home, because we had ridden together, she goes, his name's not Butch, it's Vito. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. And he told me where his apartment was and this and that and the other. So I didn't hear from him, and a couple of weeks went by, and my very, very, very best friend in the entire world was getting married on a Saturday afternoon. And it was a cake and punch reception. And I did not want to ask anybody to that wedding because I knew the family and I thought somebody's not going to be very comfortable. But it's 5 o'clock on a Saturday night and I'm back home in my apartment going, what am I going to do? I mean, I'm all dressed up, right? I'd had my hair done. And,
nowhere to go.
Thinking, I wonder what Butch is up to tonight. How could I find out? So I started down through the phone book because I knew his name was Vito. I knew his last name started with an F, and I thought it was an F-I. I wasn't sure, and I knew he lived on Tamarack.
Okay.
So how hard is that, right?
Right.
And I found him, and I called him. He's like, "Okay, yeah, well, I'll meet up."
Oh my gosh.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
That is the coolest thing. I mean, my gosh. Listen, before dating apps, before Instagram, before all of these things, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we had this thing called the phone book. And this is how people sometimes got together. That is the coolest story. I especially love it these days. I think it holds more meaning, if that makes sense today.
Okay.
And I want to say that, yes, maybe people still meet in bars, but it's not nearly as cool as the phone book. So congratulations.
Thanks.
Listen, I have a few single girlfriends, and from the stories that I hear from them, yeah, I'm thinking maybe next time I'm just going to say, have you ever tried the phone book?
Well,
They'll
they
think
have
I'm
to know
nuts.
the name and they have to know the street.
That's true. That's true. Leslie, you've been an absolute joy to talk to today, and I'm not surprised, but let us know, where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Well, they could find me on my website, which is lesliefiorenzo.coach. So COACH, and because I'm a coach, and that's probably the best way to do it. They can also find me on Facebook or LinkedIn, but
Yeah.
my website's probably best.
Awesome. Awesome. And of course, all of that information will be included in the show notes for people to find. So Leslie, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us, and all the best in your presentation tomorrow.
Thank you very much. And it's been a blast. I really have had a good time. Thanks, Nell.
You're so welcome. Thank you to Leslie, and thank you to all of you for listening in and downloading. And don't forget to leave us a review and subscribe to the podcast. That's how we grow. And share this episode with anyone you feel may get value from it. I know if you are listening, you're probably in the business sector, some sort of entrepreneur. Share this, take the advice, use it for yourself. And absolutely, I would highly recommend anything Leslie had to say here. And so anyway, thank you. I'm not going to ramble on, I promise. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, I will catch you on the next one.
To learn more about how to tell your story, connect with Nell at enticingmedia.com. That's ENTICEING media.com. Thanks for listening to the What the Nell podcast.